If a woman secretly loves you, she won't always say it. She won't confess it through words or grand declarations. She'll say it through silence, through gestures, through the way her eyes linger one heartbeat longer than they should. Most men never perceive it, because they're trapped inside their own heads, guessing, overthinking, analyzing illusions instead of behavior. But here's the brutal truth. Feminine emotions are not spoken, they leak out. And once you learn to read them, it's like seeing a hidden world that's always been there. In the realm of dark psychology, nothing is accidental. Every action has a motive, a reason, a hidden desire. When a woman feels something deep, her body becomes the messenger of her unconscious mind. Her subtle shift in her tone of voice, a genuine laugh, the way she seeks your validation without asking for it, these are microexpressions that reveal far more than words ever could. And yet most men remain blind. Not because these signs are invisible, but because the male mind has been conditioned to look for certainty, not subtlety. My name is Melkor, specialist in persuasion and manipulation. For years I've studied how desire, attraction, and power intertwine within human behavior. What you're about to hear is not romantic theory. It's a psychological dissection of feminine emotion seen through the lens of dark psychology. In this world, love isn't just an emotion. It's an unconscious strategy to conquer, to protect, or to test your perception. And once you understand that, you step into a level of awareness most men will never reach. Robert Greene once said, "Power is not taken, it is perceived." That applies to love as well. A woman who secretly loves you doesn't want to hand you her heart. She wants to test your intuition. She wants to know if you can see beyond the obvious, if you can read the emotion behind her restraint. For her, recognition is not communication, it's connection. If you fail to see it, she withdraws. If you see her without her having to speak, she surrenders. Edward Bernays, the father of modern manipulation, revealed that the masses can be led without realizing it, simply by controlling the symbols they consume. The same mechanism works in the emotional world. A woman doesn't manipulate with cruelty. She does it with instinct. Her unconscious mind communicates through gestures, tone, and distance, all to say what fear or pride will not allow her to express. If you don't understand that language, you'll be led unconsciously into the roles of friend, confidant, or almost. You'll see everything except the truth. Dale Carnegie, in his studies on influence, taught that whoever masters empathy masters the relationship. Women are natural experts at this art. They observe, analyze, and remember details men never notice. That's why their emotional language is so intricate and precise. While men look for direct statements, women communicate through coded signals. An intentional touch, a teasing comment, a fleeting look that evaluates you without your awareness. And when you fail to interpret it, she feels misunderstood and slowly detaches. Dark psychology isn't about controlling others. It's about understanding how easily we can be controlled without realizing it. Sun Tzu taught that the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. In love, a woman who secretly loves you doesn't wage open war. She practices subtle strategy. She conquers through silence. Her weapons are ambiguity, timing, and emotion. Every gesture has a purpose: to measure your perception, your emotional intelligence, and your self-mastery. Niccolo Machiavelli believed that power lies in controlling appearances. The same principle rules love. What matters is not what she feels, but what she allows you to perceive. If you can't distinguish between a polite smile and a sincere one, between attention born from habit and attention born from desire, you'll live in illusion. But once you learn to see through the human mind, to interpret body language, tone, and micro-expressions, the game changes. You'll no longer ask if she loves you. You'll simply know. Here's the truth you must grasp. When love is expressed through the unconscious, it becomes the most sophisticated form of nonverbal communication. Most men never learn that language. Let me say it again. Don't listen to what is said, observe what is revealed. A woman who secretly loves you doesn't need to pronounce it. She vibrates it, she projects it, she transmits it through every small act. But if your perception is asleep, you'll walk past the most genuine love without even noticing. This isn't a lesson in manipulation. It's an awakening. Because as long as you remain blind to the psychology of desire, you'll keep making the same mistakes, confusing kindness with attraction attention with affection, companionship with love. Today you'll learn to see what the eyes can't, and the mind refuses to. Not to become cold, but to become conscious. Because true attraction isn't built on appearance, it's built on perception. And only those who perceive dominate. From this moment on, nothing you see in feminine behavior will seem accidental again. What comes next is an immersion into the invisible signals of secret love. And once you understand them, you'll finally know why most men stay confused, and why you will never be one of them. Every act of attraction has a structure, a psychological blueprint hidden beneath behavior. Women don't fall in love randomly. They respond to emotional triggers shaped by biology, social conditioning, and subconscious programming. When she secretly loves you, her actions become fragmented reflections of those inner forces. The key is to interpret the fragments before they form the full picture. Because by the time she confesses her feelings, the real game has already ended. Let's begin with the first layer, emotional mirroring. When a woman is drawn to you, her unconscious mind starts to replicate your gestures, tone, and rhythm. It's a primal attempt to build rapport without verbal admission. Her body speaks the language of belonging, crossing her legs when you cross yours, lowering her voice when you lower yours, subtly aligning her breathing with yours. Most men never notice this, but it's one of the oldest forms of connection ever studied by Paul Ekman and later expanded by Robert Cialdini. Mirroring is nature's way of saying, you and I are the same. The second layer is selective attention. When she secretly loves you, she remembers details that others forget. She recalls what you wore last Tuesday, the way you take your coffee, the name of a friend you mentioned once. These fragments reveal emotional investment. As Daniel Kahneman described, attention is energy, and humans allocate energy only to what matters. Her memory is not accidental. It's evidence of attachment disguised as curiosity. But here's where the dark psychology begins. A woman's attraction often operates as a test. Each signal she sends is a controlled experiment. She observes how you react to her proximity, to her absence, to her mixed signals. When you chase too fast, she loses interest. When you remain indifferent, she becomes curious. The balance between confidence and emotional control is what she's unconsciously measuring. She's not trying to manipulate you in a cruel way. She's trying to identify your value through emotional calibration. Niccolò Machiavelli once wrote that people are moved more by fear than by love. In relationships, this truth translates subtly. A woman will sometimes pull away not because she's lost interest, but to measure the psychological distance you can tolerate. If you panic, she knows you are emotionally dependent. If you stay centered, she perceives strength. And strength is the purest aphrodisiac in feminine psychology. Kevin Dutton, author of The Wisdom of Psychopaths, emotional volatility is a form of social magnetism. It's what separates those who are desired from those who are merely liked. When a woman secretly loves you, she'll test your ability to remain grounded while she shakes the ground beneath you. There's also strategic vulnerability. When a woman likes you, she might reveal small, selective weaknesses, not to seek pity, but to invite emotional reciprocity. She's opening a door to intimacy without exposing herself fully. The mistake most men make is rushing through that door, trying to fix or protect her. But protection isn't what she seeks. Understanding is. If you listen instead of solving, if you empathize instead of rescuing, she begins to associate you with safety. And safety in her emotional world translates into attachment. From a dark psychology perspective, every attraction involves power exchange. Robert Greene stated that seduction is not about appearance, but about emotional dominance. Whoever controls the emotional frame controls the dynamic. When she secretly loves you, she's surrendering fragments of control. Through laughter, through trust, through vulnerability, while trying to ensure you don't realize it. The moment you show neediness, you reverse the polarity. Attraction fades. To maintain balance, you must master emotional neutrality. That doesn't mean coldness. It means responding instead of reacting. When she tests you by pulling away, you don't chase, you observe. When she flirts with ambiguity, you don't interrogate, you interpret. Your calm presence becomes a psychological anchor in her storm of uncertainty. This is what Philip Zimbardo would call controlled power, influence without aggression, dominance without domination. Women are intuitive creatures. They perceive emotional incongruence faster than logic can process. If you say one thing but your tone reveals insecurity, she senses it instantly. Paul Ekman's research on microexpressions proves this. Emotional leakage is involuntary. That's why authenticity is the most powerful strategy of all. In dark psychology, authenticity isn't moral and it's tactical, because when your behavior and emotion align, your presence radiates stability, and stability is irresistible. Let me tell you a story. A client once told me about a colleague who laughed at all his jokes, touched his arm when she spoke, and found excuses to be near him, yet swore she saw him only as a friend. He was confused, caught between signals and denials. I told him to stop reacting, to observe, to withdraw his attention without resentment. Within a week, she approached him, anxious, asking if she had done something wrong. What changed? Nothing except perception. By reclaiming his energy, he broke the invisible pattern of validation, forcing her unconscious to reveal her hidden attachment. This is the essence of psychological awareness, the ability to see what operates beneath emotion. When a woman secretly loves you, she will not declare it. She will engineer moments to be seen, an accidental touch, a playful provocation, a glance that lingers. Each one is a probe into your perception. If you fail to read it, she withdraws. If you interpret it correctly, she deepens the connection. It's not manipulation. It's biological testing through emotional feedback. Now let's talk about defense. Understanding dark psychology is not only about attraction, it's about protection. Some women, driven by insecurity or fear, may use these same signals to control rather than connect. They might simulate affection to gain validation, or flirt to extract emotional resources. That's why awareness is your greatest shield. Robert D. Hare, in his study of psychopathy, emphasized that emotional predators rely on two things: your ignorance and your empathy. Once you see the mechanism, you can't be controlled by it. Observation replaces reaction. Discernment replaces confusion. To summarize this phase, when a woman secretly loves you, she communicates in a language of patterns, repetition, proximity, emotional contrast. Your task is not to decode her mind, but to master yours. Because the moment you stop chasing validation, you start commanding presence. The moment you stop needing clarity, you start creating it. Attraction isn't won through pursuit. It's sustained through perception. And perception, the ability to read beyond words, is the highest form of power. Knowledge, without practice, is just illusion. Understanding how a woman reveals her emotions is not about control. It's about awareness. Awareness that becomes power, and power that, when guided by integrity, transforms attraction into genuine connection. You cannot master others until you master yourself. Every lesson in dark psychology starts within. Let's begin with the most essential principle: emotional stillness. When a woman secretly loves you, she will test your balance, not consciously but instinctively. She wants to know if your emotions are yours to command or if they command you. When she withdraws attention, goes silent, or flirts with ambiguity, your primitive mind will want to react, to seek reassurance, to demand answers, to chase. But here's the paradox. Every reaction confirms dependence. Every act of chasing tells her that your emotional world is open for invasion. So your first exercise is silence. When she withdraws, don't follow. Observe. Breathe. Study the patterns of your own mind. The space between her action and your reaction is where your power lives. In that space, you decide whether to act from fear or from awareness. As B.F. Skinner once said, freedom is not the absence of control, but the mastery of response. Mastering response is what makes you magnetic. Because while most men drown in emotion, you stand still. And in that stillness, you become the mirror she can trust. Now, let's move to controlled detachment. Detachment is not coldness. It's emotional discipline. It's the ability to give attention without giving dependence. When you talk to her, don't fill silence with words. Let it breathe. When you listen, don't just hear, absorb. When you compliment, do it rarely but sincerely. Women are drawn to men who create emotional contrast, calm presence wrapped in mystery. As Robert Greene wrote, absence increases respect and honor. When you give too much presence, you erase curiosity. When you give just enough, you ignite imagination. Detachment feeds desire. Obsession kills it. The third practice, ethical application of dark psychology. You are not here to manipulate. You are here to understand the mechanics of influence and to use them consciously. Influence at its core is about alignment. When your energy, words, and actions align, you radiate coherence. That coherence is what the unconscious mind of a woman perceives as confidence. For example, if she asks something that challenges your ego, smile before answering. The smile rewires your nervous system. It turns defense into dominance. If she teases you, don't explain yourself. Let silence answer for you. Silence, when intentional, is louder than words. It signals that you are emotionally self-sufficient, the rarest trait in a world addicted to validation. Melkor. Huaman teaches that persuasion begins with perception, and perception begins with control of attention. When you learn to direct your attention consciously, you become untouchable. Practice this. When you're in a conversation, notice the moment your mind drifts into self-consciousness. Bring it back. Feel your breath. Anchor yourself to the present. This simple act of awareness transforms energy. Suddenly your words carry weight, your gaze gains depth, and your silence feels like presence. You no longer try to impress, you simply express. That's the essence of masculine gravity. Let me give you a case. A student of mine once confessed that every time he liked a woman, he lost control of himself. He'd overthink to reverse the polarity. Instead of analyzing her, analyze himself. For a week, he practiced response over reaction. When she took hours to reply, he didn't chase. He went for a run. He read. He created space. The next time they met, she asked, "Why do you feel so different?" He hadn't changed what he said, only how he carried himself. That's the invisible transformation. You stop seeking validation, and the world starts validating you. Another exercise, emotional labeling. Whenever you feel jealousy, anxiety, or doubt, name the emotion silently. This is insecurity. By naming it, you create separation. You become the observer, not the prisoner. That's psychological alchemy, turning weakness into awareness. Daniel Kahneman called it System 2 activation, the process of conscious interruption that breaks automatic behavior. Once you do this consistently, emotional storms lose their grip. When you become immune to manipulation, you begin to project energy that others can't easily decipher, and mystery is magnetic. A woman who secretly loves you will sense this shift immediately. She'll feel that you understand her without being consumed by her, that you perceive her emotions but don't drown in them, that you can meet her depth without losing your ground. This is the essence of dominance without aggression. At this midpoint, I'll ask something simple yet powerful. If this message resonates with you, if you want to master the hidden psychology of attraction, influence, and awareness, subscribe to Invisible Power. Here, every video is a weapon for the mind, crafted to sharpen your intuition, strengthen your control, and protect your energy. Because once you awaken, you can't return to blindness. Now, let's continue. The next habit is strategic empathy. Empathy is not weakness. It's the ability to see reality through another person's lens, without losing yours. When a woman feels seen, not just admired, attraction evolves into emotional addiction, but empathy without boundaries turns into surrender. The key is to understand her motives, not absorb them. When she's distant, don't punish, perceive. When she's emotional, don't react, reflect. You don't mirror her chaos, you mirror her truth. That's how you transform empathy into influence. Finally, ritualize observation. Every day, train your awareness. Watch how people speak, how they move, how they breathe when they lie, how they blink when they're nervous. Paul Ekman's studies on microexpressions showed that truth lives between the muscles of the face. A single twitch can reveal fear. A glance can betray attraction. The more you see, the less you're deceived. Observation is the weapon that turns confusion into clarity, and clarity, in the world of dark psychology, is the same as control. To live with awareness is to walk among illusions without being fooled. Because once you understand human behavior, attraction stops being a mystery. You realize that love, power, and manipulation are not opposites. They're reflections of the same emotional currency, attention. And the one who directs attention directs reality. There comes a moment when perception becomes a mirror, one that no longer reflects the world, but yourself. After everything we've explored, one truth remains. Love is not a confession, it's a pattern. It's not what is said, but what is repeated in silence, in rhythm, in gesture. A woman who secretly loves you will not announce it. She will construct it, one micro-expression at a time. But whether you see it or not depends on one thing: the level of consciousness you bring into the moment. Every human interaction is an exchange of power. Sometimes it's visible, sometimes it's subtle. Most men wander blind, reacting to emotion instead of reading it. They chase, they beg, they assume. They live in the illusion that clarity comes from words. But clarity never lives in what's said. It hides in what's not said. If you listen closely enough, silence has a language, and it speaks the loudest truth. The greatest tragedy is not rejection, it's blindness. Blindness to the signals that could have changed everything. Blindness to the quiet devotion hidden behind laughter, to the affection disguised as indifference. Most men lose love not because they weren't loved, but because they never learned to see. When I teach dark psychology, people often ask, "Melkor, isn't this manipulation?" And I always answer, only if you use it without awareness. Understanding the human mind is not manipulation, it's liberation. It frees you from being controlled by illusion. It turns confusion into precision, emotion into insight, instinct into mastery. Because once you know how the game works, you no longer play unconsciously, you choose your moves with purpose. Let's be clear, every relationship is a negotiation of attention. The woman who secretly loves you negotiates through absence, through patience, through small offerings of vulnerability. The man who remains blind mistakes those gestures for coincidence. But the one who sees, the one who understands, holds quiet power. Not the power to dominate, but to discern, to decide where to invest, where to protect, where to walk away. Robert Cialdini taught that influence is not force, it's alignment. And Dale Carnegie added that the most persuasive person is the one who genuinely listens. These two principles form the heart of emotional intelligence, listening and aligning without losing yourself. That's not manipulation, that's mastery. Ask yourself this: how many signals have you ignored because you were too focused on words? How many moments have you destroyed by reacting too fast? How many times have you failed to see that what looked like disinterest was actually fear, and what looked like coldness was actually love trying to protect itself? The problem is not that women are mysterious. The problem is that men stop paying attention once words fail them. But the truth is, attraction is not a puzzle to solve, it's a rhythm to feel. When you begin to listen with your intuition instead of your ego, you stop chasing love, and love begins to chase you. Melkor once said, "The mind that observes rules, the mind that reacts serves." Every time you observe without reacting, you reclaim power from the unconscious. You step into awareness. You stop being the puppet of your impulses and become the architect of your reality. This is what true psychological evolution looks like: calm, precise, unshakable. And yet here's the final paradox. The more you master dark psychology, the less you need to use it. Because awareness replaces manipulation. Understanding replaces control. Once you see how people operate, you no longer need to play games. You simply stand still while others reveal themselves. That's the ultimate level of power. Effortless dominance born from awareness. So, I leave you with this challenge. Next time you sense that someone may love you in silence, don't ask. Don't guess. Observe. Watch her eyes when she laughs, the tone she uses when she says your name, the way her body tilts toward you when she speaks. Study the details the world ignores. Because love doesn't hide. It only speaks in a language few are awake enough to hear. And if you learn to hear it, you'll never look at love the same way again, not because it changed, but because you